Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are really digging into a company that's, well, pretty much defining everything right now, Nvidia. Our mission here is to look at the sources, the reports, the analysis, and try to understand how they hit this historic valuation and cemented their dominance in AI.
And you'd have to start with the number.
Right.
Just staggering. Nvidia just became the first company ever to cross the $5 trillion market cap mark. $5,031 billion, to be precise.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't just a big company anymore. It's like a foundational piece of the economy. The speed is just something else.
Something else is right. Unprecedented is the word the sources keep using. And if you look back, 5 years? The stock's up something like 5,530%.
Incredible, isn't it?
It's just,
Yeah.
it makes everyone rethink what's even possible. So the big question we want to unpack for you, the listener, is what exactly is happening right now? What factors are lining up to make that $5 trillion number stick?
Well, the sources seem to point to a sort of perfect storm. You've got this unmatched tech advantage meeting some really timely, geopolitical and contract news that just paved the way.
Okay, let's break that down. Start with the immediate stuff, the catalysts.
Okay.
What was the recent news that gave it that immediate boost?
Right, so there was a really significant contract announcement. Nvidia is officially partnering with Oracle,
Okay.
and they're building an AI supercomputer specifically for the U.S. Department of Energy, the DOE.
Ah, the DOE. So that's serious infrastructure, not just, selling some servers.
Exactly. This is mission-critical stuff, national level. And when investors see that kind of government buy-in, it signals, deep confidence in the tech for the long haul.
Okay, so that's the tech validation. But you mentioned geopolitics. The sources also highlighted comments from President Trump and others suggesting a potential U.S. China trade deal.
Yes, and this is huge. You could see the market react almost immediately if a deal like that actually happens.
What does it mean for Nvidia specifically?
It essentially takes major risks off the table. Things like export controls, market access issues, stuff that's been kind of hanging over the stock.
Yeah.
A deal de-escalates that.
But isn't that a bit fragile? I mean, basing part of a $5 trillion valuation on maybe getting a trade deal, that feels like it's resting on a handshake.
That's a fair point, and it definitely reflects, the underlying risk there. But the potential upside is just seen as so enormous that investors seem willing to bet on it.
And the upside is?
Reestablishing their full business in China, tapping back into that absolutely massive market that's been somewhat restricted. So the sources kind of frame it as, everything just seems to be falling into place right now, very bullishly.
Okay. Got it. So external factors providing a tailwind. But like you said, that only matters because the core tech is so strong. Let's talk about the hardware, the GPUs.
Exactly. That's the heart of it.
Yeah.
NVIDIA's graphics processing units, the GPUs, they are fundamentally the engine driving AI.
How so, specifically?
They're just built for the kind of massive parallel processing you need to train these huge models, the llamas, the GPTs, all of them. They're essentially the plumbing for the whole modern AI economy.
But the sources suggest it's not just the hardware, right? There's the software piece, CUDA, that gets mentioned a lot, often called the secret sauce.
Yeah, and CUDA is strategically brilliant. It's this whole suite of tools, libraries. Basically, it helps developers squeeze every last drop of performance out of NVIDIA's GPUs. It makes their lives easier.
And that efficiency, that ease of use, it creates something else, doesn't it? A kind of moat.
Precisely. The sources call it developer lock-in, and it's deep. Think about it. Teams spend years building expertise, optimizing code, all based on CUDA.
Right.
Switching to a competitor, it's not just changing suppliers. It's like telling a construction crew halfway up a skyscraper they need to switch measurement systems, and none of their tools work anymore.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. The cost and risk just become enormous.
Astronomically high.
And that kind of dominance must show up in the financials. We have to talk numbers. The sources mention these incredible gross margins. What was it? Nearly 70%?
Yeah, 69.85%. It's astonishing.
Put that in context for us. Why is that so high?
Well, look at traditional hardware companies. They often fight to get maybe 40%, 50% margins because they're often selling something closer to a commodity, replaceable silicon.
Okay.
Nvidia, though, they're selling performance that right now doesn't really have an equal. Plus, they're selling access to that whole CUDA ecosystem we just talked about. That gives them incredible pricing power. That margin tells you how valuable customers think this tech is and how few alternatives they feel they have.
And That economic strength has fundamentally changed their business profile, right? The sources talk about a shift from being cyclical to having a secular growth tailwind. Can you unpack that a bit?
Sure. So cyclical demand, like their older gaming business, kind of goes up and down. Depends on when people decide to upgrade their hardware.
Right.
Predictable cycles. Secular growth is different. It means the demand is driven by a fundamental, ongoing shift in the world. AI isn't a cycle. Models need constant training, constant inference, more power, all the time.
So it's a permanent increase in demand, not just temporary bumps.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
relentless. And that structural shift, that constant secular demand, combined with those amazing margins and just fantastic sales growth, that's where their earnings keep soaring. They've tapped into the essential infrastructure build-out for, well, the next digital age.
Okay, so strong hardware plus that CUDA software lock-in. You're saying this allows them to do more than just sell chips now.
Yes, it's enabled a strategic pivot. They're increasingly offering AI processing as a service, basically renting out their GPU power directly.
So moving towards being like a utility provider for AI. High margins, recurring revenue, not just one-off sales.
Precisely. It makes the business much more predictable and potentially even more profitable. And the sources show they're not stopping there, not just focusing on the data center.
Oh, where else are they pushing?
They're using that parallel processing know-how everywhere, making really aggressive plays in several other huge growth areas.
Like what? Can you give some examples?
Sure. We're seeing major efforts in robotics. Their chips provide the brains for real-time interaction. Then there's autonomous vehicles needing huge instant processing power for driving decisions. And also the whole Internet of Things, IoT, space. Think AI needing to run everywhere on all sorts of devices.
Wow. Okay. So it's a comprehensive strategy. They want to be the computational bedrock for, well, everything intelligent and connected in the future.
That seems to be the plan. Build the infrastructure for the entire intelligent future.
Now, we do need to be balanced here. No company is untouchable forever. The sources did mention competitors like AMD are making some inroads.
They absolutely are, and that's important to watch. AMD has gained ground. They've won some significant contracts.
With who?
Notably, with big AI players, resource-heavy ones like OpenAI and Amazon. That definitely shows these large customers are actively trying to, diversify. They don't want to rely entirely on one supplier.
Okay, but wait. If companies like Amazon and OpenAI, who arguably need the absolute best AI performance and have deep pockets, are giving contracts to AMD, doesn't that suggest maybe Nvidia's lead isn't quite as unassailable as it seems? Is that crack in the foundation?
It's definitely a sign that supply chain diversification is a priority for these big players. You could call it a necessity. But is it a crack in the technological foundation? The sources seem to suggest. Probably not yet.
Okay.
While diversification is happening, and maybe clients are giving rivals contracts partly to encourage competition, the overall consensus in the material we reviewed is that Nvidia still holds a really clear, significant lead, both in raw performance and that whole CUDA ecosystem advantage.
Right, the ecosystem lock-in again.
Exactly.
This brings up a crucial point the sources make about AI, this idea of compounding competitive advantages. What does that mean for these big tech companies buying the hardware?
It means speed matters intensely. Every tiny bit of extra performance you get from better hardware, like NVIDIA's, lets you train your AI model faster, make it better quicker.
Okay.
A better model attracts more users, which generates more data, which lets you improve the model even more. It snowballs. It accelerates exponentially. So for Amazon, Google, OpenAI, it's an existential race. Milliseconds count.
So it creates this really high-stakes choice for them, doesn't it?
It seems pretty stark, yeah.
You either pay top dollar for the absolute best hardware, which right now the sources say is Nvidia to fuel those compounding breakthroughs,
Wow.
or you risk of falling behind, not just slightly behind, but potentially exponentially behind because of that compounding effect. The cost of waiting or settling for second best could be fatal in this race.
It really frames the perceived lack of choice, doesn't it?
It does. So wrapping this all up for the listener, if we synthesize this historic run, the $5 trillion valuation seems built on, what, 4 main pillars?
All right, that's fair.
Right.
First, unmatched hardware performance in GPUs. Second, that incredibly sticky CUDA software platform creating that lock-in.
Right.
Third, those almost unbelievable financials, driven by those nearly 70% gross margins and secular demand. And fourth, these timely geopolitical catalysts potentially opening up even more growth down the road.
It feels like understanding NVIDIA right now is pretty key to understanding the whole AI boom. They're supplying the picks and shovels for this massive digital gold rush, but the most expensive, most essential ones.
Absolutely. And maybe here's a final thought for you, the listener, to consider as you watch this unfold. We talked about OpenAI and Amazon giving some contracts to AMD, likely for diversification.
Mhm.
But given this analysis, this idea that falling behind in AI hardware risks getting completely left behind due to compounding advantages,
Mm.
how long can they really afford to diversify?
Yeah.
At what point does the pressure to win, the pressure for sheer performance, force them to stop hedging their bets and just go all in with the undisputed leader, even if it means less supplier choice? It's something to think about. How long can that competitive balance actually last?